Oh, today is the big one. This is a pretty good story. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Guild Wars 2 story time. First of all, I have to say, I do apologize that it's taken me a few days to get this story out. Obviously, I didn't know Arenanet were going to put it out, and I had a few videos already lined up, so I wanted to push those out first. I must have had a bazillion messages from you guys saying, oh, you got to read this story, you got to read this story, and I deliberately held off until just now, because I knew if I read it before I was ready to record, I'd get too excited about it, and then I'd want to record it straight away, but I didn't have room, blah, 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 blah. So, first of all, sorry about that. Second of all, if you guys aren't familiar with what Arenanet have been doing, they put up stories about the living world, the events in the living world that are currently happening. This one is fascinating, one of the longest and most intriguing ones so far. I'm going to be reading it out, doing sort of an audio book for you guys type thing here, and then I'm going to add in my own speculations and thoughts about the story. I do have to say, if you hear me start reading this in this video and you think, oh, I don't like that guy's reading voice, there is a link in the description. Please do read it anyway, because I'm telling you, it's fascinating, it's really cool. But it's a long one, so in the hopes of not making this like a 40-minute video, let's get started. This story is called What Scarlet Saw. It's by Scott McGow on the 23rd of August 2013. Scarlet, of course, being the new villain that has been introduced to us in the living world. Very mysterious character. They've given us some answers here. So let's get stuck in. Professor Omad, headmaster emeritus of the College of Synergetics, anxiously twisted his ear as he waited for the Sylvari woman to wake. She had been thrashing violently in the isolation module for days now, crying out random syllables and howling in pain? Ecstasy? Omad wasn't sure. Even a genius of his caliber could only guess what was happening inside that leafy green head. Omad clenched his fist, squeezing his ear until it brought tears to his eyes. The most promising student he had ever instructed, conducting most important experiment of his long and storied career, and all he could do was stand idle and fret. The woman gasped deeply and convulsed once more. Then she bolted upright, tearing clean through the restraints that bound her head and hands to the apparatus. Sierra? Omad put a reassuring hand on the Sylvari's shoulder, and then yelped. Her skin was hot to the touch, and the faint golden glow that surrounded her had shifted to vivid crimson. She slowly turned to face him, her eyes sharp and focused. Sierra, can you hear me? What did you see? The Sylvari woman brought open her hand and spread her fingers wide. A thin vine crawled from her sleeve and began weaving between her splayed digits. Scarlet, she said. My name is Scarlet now. Scarlet Briar. Scarlet, then, he snapped. Tell me, please, what did you see? Small red thorns sprang up from the vine between Scarlet's fingers. She smiled. Everything, she said. Sierra emerged from the dream and stepped forward, savouring the wet grass of the grove beneath her feet. With her eyes still closed, she inhaled, taking in the fresh scent of living things all around her. Welcome, sapling. The voice was kind, the tone gentle. My name is Mendeceremon. You are safe here. Shh, I'm thinking. Sierra opened her eyes to a vibrant world of greens and golds and earthy browns. Sunlight streamed down through the canopy, nourishing the great trees and warming the ground-level vegetation. All around, creatures of every shape and size called to one another, exploring, chasing, being chased, always in motion. Sierra blinked, pleasantly overwhelmed by it all. The world was a fascinatingly complex system of smaller, interlocking systems that affected one another in an ever-changing dance. It was beyond fascinating. It was life itself, and now she was a part of it. Sapling, Ceremon said, I'm here to help you acclimate, to help you understand your place in this world and identify the purpose Pale Mother has given you. Her eyes remained fixed on the complex living dance of the forest. I'll find my own place, thank you very much, and it's hardly my purpose if someone else gives it to me. Ceremon's face soured, but he kept his soothing tone. You've awakened with a wealth of confidence, he said, but don't presume too much. We all make choices in life, but sometimes choices are made for us, especially we children of the Pale Tree. It is the way of things. The way of things? Sierra smiled. Ceremon's world was so clearly defined for him. He would never challenge it, never test it, never seek to redefine it. She laughed merrily and said, Thank you for attending my awakening, Menda, but where my life is concerned, I will be the one who chooses. After 8 years of voracious study in the Grove, Sierra had learned all she cared to from her extended family. Her people were accomplished hands at many key disciplines, but they couldn't provide the depth of knowledge she craved. She wanted to construct systems as complex as the ones she saw in nature, to build machines as sublime as the living things she saw each and every day. Her greatest joy as a student came from testing those established systems to expose their flaws in aid of strengthening her own designs. She learned much from the master engineers among her people, but theirs were simple meals that could not sate her hunger. Sierra decided to strike out into the world to find something that could. Her first stop was the smiths of Holbrack. If she wanted to make machines, she needed to understand metal. She impressed a grizzled old bear of a Norn named Beargarth with her interest and energy, and on his invitation spent a long winter as his pupil, apprentice and forge tender. When spring came, she announced her intentions to move on, having learned all she needed to know. Beargarth tried to dissuade her, eager to pass along the full slate of his smithing knowledge to such a unique and promising student, but she left him with a wave and a breezy smile. She didn't need to be a master smith to forge the kind of creations she envisioned. Next, she spent 2 years with a gladium named Assegai, late of the Iron Legion. An expert sniper and demolitionist, Assegai could tell by feel if a firearm was not assembled properly, and correct a misaligned sight on a field gun just by listening to the sound of its thunder. When Sierra had learned all the lonesome soldier's secrets and declared her intent to continue her studies elsewhere, the Char veteran cursed her for a feckless cub and threatened to gut her with a rusty blade. Sierra gracefully avoided Assegai's wild swings and bid her a respectful farewell. Firearms and artillery were fun, but they were far too simple. Knowing there was only one place that could expand her knowledge as broadly and as quickly as she required, she set out for Ratasum. She found that convincing the 3 great colleges to let her in was the hardest part. Apart from their inherent bias against non-Asura, they did not relish a lowly Silvari with delusions of academic excellence diluting or contaminating their student body's collective brainpower. When Sierra constructed a fully functional Golemite on the fly from a small power crystal, a handful of raw ore and a few select spells, the Arcane Council begrudgingly granted her provisional status as Dynamics student. She completed the Dynamics coursework in under a year as the highest ranked student in her class. Chagrined, the counsellors gave her the same opportunity in Statics. When she achieved similar results in a similar time frame, they were intrigued enough to see if she could do the same with Synergetics. Synergetics took quite a bit longer, however, as Sierra finally found a field of study that was as boundless as her interest. She immersed herself in Synergetics' miasmic mist of mystical energy patterns and arcane probabilities, in its focus on chaos theory and mapping unpredictable connections, in the pursuit of hidden knowledge and secret mechanisms derived in equal parts from the contemplation of the ephemeral and the application of the practical. It was here, under Headmaster Omad, that Sierra first began to grapple with the eternal alchemy. The deeper she delved into it, the more convinced she became that the pinnacle of Asuran thought was not a meta-magical engine or transcendent equation, but a key that allowed one access to the basic fabric of reality itself. Though backed 100% by Omad, Sierra's thesis was not well received by the colleges or the Arcane Council. Unsupportable conjecture, they called it. Unsubstantiated claims that border on academic heresy, or at very least, criminality. She barely noticed. She had already begun to separate herself from the collegiate system in the hopes of finding a research organisation that would be more receptive to her ideas. She found it in the Inquest. Sierra's time with the Inquest was brief, but extremely productive. They taught her things the other colleges wouldn't even discuss, and allowed field tests without those irritating and unnecessary safety precautions. Things ended suddenly and badly, however, when Sierra and her crewmate Tio broke into the city's archives and tampered with several of the designs they found there. It was presented to her as a means to give the Inquest a competitive edge in the upcoming SNAF prize competitions, but Sierra also left her stamp on a few unrelated projects she found. When caught, Tio teleported herself to safety and left Sierra to face the consequences. The council stripped Sierra of her academic credentials and the peacemakers ejected her from Ratasum. She laughed and left the city without any of her research notes or belongings, whistling as she went. She wandered for several months before settling in with the Mekotl Hylek just outside Ratasum, which required her to disguise herself under a hooded cowl to avoid the attention of the peacemakers. Hylek alchemy was diverting, but she considered it a cul-de-sac on the road she had chosen. Mixing potions, poisons and elixirs to produce specific effects was similar to building devices, but there was too much horticulture and not enough engineering for her tastes. If she wanted to spend her life harvesting pollen or distilling extracts from exotic blooms, she would have never left the grove. Fortunately, proximity to Ratasum made it possible for Omad to track her down. Her mentor offered her the chance to explore the eternal alchemy again. Ciara agreed and left the Mekotl village without a word of explanation. After months of painstaking preparation, Omad's experiment was ready. Ciara would enter his isolation module. A vast array of former mechanical devices were wired to a coffin-like chamber. Once activated, she would be unfettered by her physical body and could delve into the metaphysical vortex of reality as no one ever had. He warned her repeatedly about the danger to her life and her sanity. "You have to survive," he told her. "The module's one shortcoming is that it can't record what your mind experiences. If you don't come back or can't articulate what you've learned, it will all be for naught." Noted. Ciara's face was bright, her eyes wide and hungry. Let's get started. Inside Omad's machine, the universe stretched out before her, an endlessly vast, star-flecked sea. She moved through it, struggling against its currents, floating effortlessly above them, or standing perfectly still as strange lights and magical energy swirled around her. She saw Tyria as a life-sized globe, fixed in place among cosmic storms and massive clouds of potentiality. She wondered if she would see herself in Omad's lab when Ratasum rotated into view, but then impatiently went on, plunging deeper into the churning void. "Stop, my child." Ciara paused. She hadn't heard the pale tree's voice in years. "Please, go no further. In seeking to comprehend the forces that shape us, you will unleash them. Society cannot withstand that." Ciara felt an electric tingle and she wondered if her body was smiling back in Omad's lab. Deliberately, and with great glee, Ciara thought, "Shush, I'm thinking," and then pressed on. She soon saw a vague, glowing shape ahead. A tree, she thought. The pale tree, its great off-white trunk connected to a broad network of branches and leaves to a root system below. Instead of nuts or berries beneath its leaves, there were Sylvari. Thousands of her people hung from the tree's boughs like ripe fruit ready to fall. Their bodies did not move, but their eyes shifted and rolled, eagerly taking in their surroundings. Some dropped, like autumn leaves, slowly drifting down to root level. There they stood, stretched and then set out into the void, disappearing as they cleared the spreading canopy. Some never made it that far, staggering, falling and withering within the shade of the great tree. Disappointment soured Ciara's fascination. Was this it, then? Were the lives of all Sylvari so easily encapsulated? Birth, travel, experience, death, all played out under the dictates and philosophies of the godlike entity that created them? She refused to accept that. Everything she had learned said that no system, no matter how complex, can perpetuate itself indefinitely. Those that did not evolve inevitably failed. It was then Ciara saw the thorn vine. It emerged from the roots at the base of the tree and began to climb, wrapping itself around the trunk and scoring the bark with its dusty red barbs. Green-black ichor oozed from these wounds, and the great tree shuddered. Then, Ciara was the vine, squeezing the great tree's trunk like a desperate lover. The tree struggled against her. She was meant to be a part of it, to participate in its grand purpose. Instead, she was no more than an irritant, a provocation. "Now, do you see?" The pale tree's voice was faint and distant, but it snapped Ciara back to viewing the tree from a distance. "If you are not one with what you were born to be, you are lost. Worse, you are dangerous." Sheer joy surged through Ciara. "Dangerous, you say?" Her thoughts boomed loud as thunder across the void. "So be it." With the pale tree's desperate words and her own raucous laughter echoing across the void, Ciara plunged through the vision of the great tree and beyond. Motionless, Omad stared wide-eyed at his former student. "It worked," Scarlet said. "I suppose I should thank you for that, though I bet I would have figured it out on my own eventually. Still, no reason to begrudge a genius his due, right?" Omad did not reply. Scarlet giggled as she raised her hand to her face and watched the red thorn vine chase itself between her fingers. So much makes sense now. The pale tree, the nightmare court, Kaith and Fowlane. It's all part of a grand design. But I see the flaws in that design. My people don't have to take what we're given or be what we were born to be. No, people do. We can change the rules. Well, I can. And I'm going to. Omad said nothing. With dusty red thorn vines wrapped tightly around his throat, wrists and ankles, he could not. He hung silent and still, suspended from all four walls and the ceiling on a tangled deadfall of thorns as blood dripped and pooled below him. "I've learned so much," Scarlet continued. "Now I have to put that knowledge to use. An insurmountable challenge is rising, and my people have been called to meet it. We are compelled by our Creator to do so. But I reject that call. I reject the notion that we must choose the dream or be lost to nightmare. The forces that push us this way or that can be redirected. They can be set against one another to the detriment of both. And now I know how." Scarlet gestured and the thorns around Omad tightened. They raised his lifeless body high and then turned it to greet whoever entered the room next. Scarlet's voice rose as she went on. "I have a great deal of work ahead of me. I don't know what the world will be when I'm through, but I will very much enjoy finding out. Empires will fall, continents will burn, and when the conflagration is over, I'll be there to put my stamp on whatever new world this one becomes." Manic glee flashed in her eyes and she said, "Goodbye, old friend. All good students must take up their master's mantle and share the wisdom they've attained, and I am a very, very good student." Laughing, full of renewed purpose, Scarlet blew Omad's body a kiss and danced lightly out into the evening cool air. Whoa, okay, that is the story. Now, I'm either going to do one or two things here. I'm going to leave this as a video and then do my speculations after, or we're going to have the speculations right now. That depends. You might not even hear what I'm saying at the moment. I might just cut this out. But that's the story, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I will do my speculations next time. So please do join me there. There's a lot to say. I deciphered loads of stuff the first time I read it. Well, not deciphered, but I thought of a lot of stuff when I first read it, and now reading it again to you guys, I've noticed a whole bunch of other stuff, so I'd love to talk about it. Can I also say, obviously, all credit here really goes to the writers of stories like this. Now that I see I've basically got a video where I just read what someone else wrote, it seems kind of weird to me. I do try and put some speculations in, but I have like 50 minutes of footage total, so it only makes sense to split. But I just want to say, do show your love to Arenanet. Let them know that you enjoy stories like this. I'm sure you guys probably did. I can't say that enough. I mean, it really does come down to them, and it's them that are giving this excitement to us. So yeah, thanks anyway, guys. I will see you next time. It won't be too long before the next video is up. Catch you later.